Handball's an easy game to figure out. It's racquetball without the racket. Handball's best are at the Las Vegas Athletic Club for the National Doubles Championship. Scott Higgins has the story about one of today's special matches.
Some people dream of a championship their entire life, but never come close. Others wait until they're 70, like this fearsome foursome at the U.S. Handball Championships today in Las Vegas. They've all won world or national titles, and they're all at least 70 years old.
I figured I had 10 good years of handball and then maybe 10 mediocre years. And I'm having my second 10 good years right now.
I've been playing for more than 55 years, and I'm enjoying it as much today as I was when I was a kid. Which, how can you beat something that stays with you all your life and gives you the joy that we all experience?
Of course, being a world champion does present its problems. It's similar to teams that just won a Super Bowl. Your opponent always gears up for you.
It's tough. You have to train. Before I went to Atlanta 2 years ago, I threw 26,000 balls with my left.
You see everything from bum knees to bruised hands in the major handball tournaments. So when you're 70, why bother? Because that championship could be just around the corner. But even if it's not, it's the thrill of the hunt.
When you're on the court, you have to outthink your opponents, and that makes it almost like a chess game. What are they going to do next? And you got to think maybe one or two moves beyond that.
This sport has all of the qualities that boxing has, except for the brutality, the grit, determination, endurance, speed, power.
You can see it all through Sunday when the tournament wraps up. Reporting from the Las Vegas Athletic Club, Scott Higgins, Eyewitness Sports 8.
For some reason, I don't think I could picture George Foreman in a handball court.
Oh, is there room in it?
You got to be you got to be in shape to do that.
They tell me that people who are really good at that are ambidextrous. So.
Well, I think you'd have to be, definitely,
yes.
Yeah. In the spirit of the Northwest, live from KATU in Portland, it's AM Northwest with your hosts Jim Bosley and Mary Sterrett.
Alrighty. We want to talk this morning about people whose dream homes turned into nightmares. We've heard lots of stories about remodeling nightmares.
Yes.
Where you call contractors in and they not only don't do what they say they're going to do, but they do nothing, or they leave a mess, or they charge you exorbitant amounts of money. And we've got some great stories here. We're going to find out later from Channel 2 News consumer reporter Randy Rippledor how not to get ripped off. And we'll also find out from a woman who used to be a contractor just what you can do to make sure you hire somebody who's reputable. We have now with us Nancy and Terry Forrest. Their dream home turned into the house from hell. Listen to this. They had two brothers who said they had built 12 homes. Turns out they hadn't built any except one. They were so incompetent that 15 to 20 other contractors stopped by the house to see just what a mess they'd made because they'd heard stories. That's bad. It cost them $20,000 more than they had been quoted. Joan Wayne, not to be confused with John Wayne, spent $67,000 more than originally planned, and a job that took over a year longer than she was told originally. Alrighty, our next guest is Chatten Hayes. Her remodeling disaster cost her $60,000, and she says she ended up paying $25,000 more than the original estimate, and he was unlicensed. So we're going to hear about their horror stories before we find out how not to become like them. Please welcome our guests. Good morning. Nancy and Terry, what happened?
Well, I think what originally happened is we had this dream of a big Queen Anne Victorian home, and when we, through a realtor, got in contact with two young builders, first key is they're very young, and they had a dream to go on and start a new career in building Queen Anne Victorian type homes. And so we came up with these ideas, and it seemed like everything just clicked, and it was just this great idea to go together and work together towards helping them start in this area of houses and for us to get the house that we wanted.
And then we started. And as the house project began, first of all, it took over 7 months to finish. One of the first major problems we encountered was when they told us that our hot water heater and furnace couldn't go where the blueprints said they should go, and they ended up inside our house. When the
Where?
What? Right next to our TV room. So every time,
when
every
this
time
would
the
come
heater
on,
came on, I felt like we lived in the airport. It was like we couldn't hear the TV. And
we had our front door is made out of metal and glass, and they put our front door on and didn't put the hardware on at the same time. But they didn't want anybody entering the house during the construction. They hammered on top a 2x6 to hold it in place.
We had painted, fluted molding, very expensive Victorian molding. It was all done, and we requested that they please put locks on our doors. Everybody in the neighborhood was building at the same time and putting the deadbolts on and everything, and for some reason they wouldn't do it. So they took these 2x6s and nailed them right into our finished woodwork.
To keep someone from opening the door?
And so there were little things, little things like this that caused between 15 and 20 other contractors to come by just to see how bad a job could be?
Things got worse. Actually, once we were in, we discovered that the city inspector had passed certain stages of the house, and we went underneath the house only to discover that there were posts and beams missing. These are the things that hold the house up. We went up into the attic and discovered that there were missing purlins, which also are support structures to hold up the roof.
So what was the recourse on this? I mean, what did you finally end up with?
We ended up with a couple of hearings with the State Contractors Board, and the emotional burden of all this was so great, we ultimately settled on some amount of money. It cost over $20,000 to redo what they had done incorrectly, and the list is too great to cover.
Word of mouth with contractors, they accused us of spreading their name all over town, and we were new to the city, and we went to church outside of the city, and people literally came to our door and said, we heard from other contractors, is this true? Could we take a look? And as every new contractor came to our house, they found more and more and more things. And we had 3 weight supporting beams under our house that were totally missing. And like he said, the attic, it just went on and on.
I wonder if these guys are still operating as contractors. It wouldn't surprise me.
Probably.
We understand that they still are, but we've heard through other contractors who have literally come back to tell us that they've really been watched close, and they are getting their hands spanked a lot.
It's amazing. All right, Joan, what happened to you?
I decided after I was widowed. Now, this was, I think, probably, I would like to have other widows know that this is maybe not the best thing to do, but to remodel my house, because I wanted to stay there. And my husband and I had had a dream design, and so I sat down with draftsmen. We designed the house. I checked with several people, got a contractor that I thought had a very good reputation. I had him in. He seemed like a nice man. We agreed on a price of $63,000 to add a whole upstairs. I was going to add a jacuzzi room upstairs, and a redwood and rock room, and a party room, and a bedroom, and all these wonderful things, and a spiral staircase. 3 months is what he told me it would take. 14 months later, when I fired him, and had lived in water and wet and rain, and the siding gone off of my house, and insulation blowing in, and a 12 by 12 foot hole that was there to put the staircase up, that literally it rained inside my house through this, through everything, through things that were delicate, wonderful things, things that I had saved and put in the garage. I tried to use the shower upstairs after he told me I could use that after the jacuzzi had overflown and flooded the kitchen and had dog dishes floating out into the garage. I had now a chance. I thought the shower was okay. They ruined my waterbed. I tried to drain it out through the shower. There was no seal in the shower, so the water came down the roof line, the old roof line, through every nail hole, through everything that was stored in the garage to keep it safe.
So you had to hire 9 men.
9 men,
to
working constantly.
It for 3 months.
Right.
At a total job cost of $130,000. The original estimate was $63,000.
Right.
So did you sue the guy?
I tried to sue him.
And you couldn't because?
Because I had fired him when we had a contract. And I found out in California that you cannot fire someone if you have a contract. They're not an employee. You have to let them continue to ruin your home and then give them a chance to correct it.
So what happened to this guy?
Nothing. He got his hand slapped. He has a bad mark against him in the California Contractors Board. I ended up with a total of $8,000 because the judge did admit, even though I shouldn't have fired him, that he should have had a drip pan under my jacuzzi so all the water wouldn't come into my new furnace and my pantry and my living room. But that was it. That was it.
Okay, Chatten, you were in California. You were going to move back up to a home you owned?
Yeah, to my own home.
To your own home, and you wanted a little remodeling done long distance?
Well, I hired someone who had done a couple of things for me before, once in my apartment, and had built the drapes for the home that I was coming home to. And this person had posed as a friend, you know, let's go out to dinner, I want you to meet my friends, I like you so much, and on and on. And so I thought it was okay to do it by long distance. And I came up a couple times before the move, and things really began to disintegrate. For example, when it was costing more and more. I was getting more and more demands for money, and since it was a friend from before and recommended by friends that I knew, I said, well, that's fine. I would write the checks. Okay, how stupid. I just feel like such an idiot. Anyway, so I would come up and check, but as things sort of got out of hand and more money, I asked for simple things like receipts, and this person flew off the handle and said, you can't have the receipts. I'm a designer, and you can't know my sources and all this. And I mean, things like that. I came home one day to feed my cat after we were back in Oregon. The job was not done. My husband and I were living at the Heathman Hotel for 3 weeks. I came home to feed my cat, and this man went off on me and completely yelled at me for coming home when he had workers in the home. This is my home, right? These things escalated. My faith in him, of course, disintegrated. And, you know, I've heard the emotional part that the Foresters were mentioning, and the getting in over your head for contractors that Ms. Wayne was mentioning. And I think that was both the case. I was emotionally completely distraught for about a year. I was just furious. And it did cost me more and more money.
Well, okay, so you asked him simply for receipts.
Right, that was one thing, yes. Yeah, because he would just type up receipts.
And give them to you.
And give them to me.
And so you were just writing him checks.
I was just writing him checks because he was a friend and I trusted him until things broke down.
What did you hire him to do?
Well, we hired him originally to remodel the kitchen. It's an old home, and then we decided, well, the old plaster and lath is kind of rocky, you know, an old home in Portland, and so let's put in wallboard, and then let's change the fixtures in the bathroom. So we basically did the whole ground floor of a small home.
So you were unsatisfied. You went to the builder's board, and you found out that this designer slash builder slash contractor, he wasn't licensed.
Oh no, he wasn't known to anyone. And to add to this, another person who had used him had been warning me the whole time. You should get receipts. You got to be watching. Okay.
So what happened?
The builder's board. He didn't show up for the hearing. I went through the whole hearing process. They fined him $1,000 through their only consequences that they can put on through the state.
Can they get any money back for you?
Oh no, not for me. I couldn't because there were no receipts and it was too much of a tangle.
What would your advice be quickly to people when they're hiring
Don't do things out of town. Be there every moment to watch all the things and check with the builder's board. Check with them.
Good advice.